First of all, I see that people are entering this meeting right now. Some of you know me, many of you don't. And before we dive into today's agenda, I like to start conversations like this by a story. And about 17 years ago, I moved out to Arizona. And one of the first people that I met when I moved out to Arizona was this guy right next to me. Over that long period of time, he's become a very good friend. He's now a business partner. I've got to know him extremely well. And where we're at today in terms of what we're presenting to you, giving you the progress on this transition that we've got going on in our merger, is really the culmination of a conversation that we've had for several years. So first, I want to thank everybody for being here. This is really exciting for us to address you all as kind of a unified group right now. And the purpose of today is to give you an update on our transition and where we're at, answer a lot of questions that you have, introduce you to the team. And I want to start by saying those of you that have worked with me for years know that when I do these quarterly reviews, I open it up to questions throughout the entire seminar. I'm not going to do that today because I think a lot of what we're going to discuss is going to be addressed as we sort of work through the material. So with that, Andy, can we pull up the agenda for tonight to give you an idea of some of the things that we're going to address?
And while he does that, let me just throw in, I think Brent's okay too.
Yeah.
From our side or my side, it's been a joy, particularly the last 10 years, watching Brent's branch at Raymond James flourish and having conversations as peers. And I would echo that it was probably about a year ago now that we had a conversation about where we were both headed, what we wanted to do with the business, how we were structured, how long we were going to do it, who we were doing it with, who we were doing it for. And that conversation a year ago led to where we are today. And so I too am really excited to see a bunch of faces and meet a bunch of new people. And I think we're both really proud to show you what we've put together in terms of a team and an infrastructure and physical location that's forthcoming. So Brent, you want to go through the agenda and just kind of formally go through all the topics we're going to hit on here?
Yeah, and one of the things that we're going to start with who's who in the team. For those of you that work with Jeff, I'm going to give you some background in terms of where I've come from and my history in the business. We're also going to introduce you with all the team members that we've had here that are here to serve you. Then we're going to talk about our partners. We've got a lot of questions. All right, who are some of these people that are now involved in serving our organization and you guys by extension? Next, we're going to talk about the status of the transition, where we've had some success, where we are still waiting on a few of the assets to come over. Then we're going to give you an update in terms of some technology that's coming your way that is definitely going to be welcome, I think. And then finally, we're going to open it up to Q&A.
Awesome. Andy, can you advance for us? Great. Brent, go ahead.
All right, so we've got one full service team. And one of the main reasons that, at least on my end, that I know that we did this is I looked across my business and as we're growing, as we're expanding, the idea that we could really scale allows you to do a lot of things. It allows you to leverage up. It allows you to provide a far greater level of service. And when I look across at this team that Jeff and I put together, it's really just going to add a lot more capacity. It's going to add a lot more service to you. So now, to start with, we're just going to introduce you to everyone that we've got now as part of this thing.
Yeah, well, some intros by us and some by the others themselves. So Brent, you want to go ahead and start with your background?
Yeah, sounds good. So I started in this business. I was in a very different side of the business. I graduated college back in 1995, went right to New York. There I was a member of the New York Stock Exchange as a specialist trader. So if you can imagine back in the old days where you used to see photos of the trading floor, people running around, yelling and screaming at each other. That was what I did for about 10 years or so. And the best way I can describe that job, it was like working in a locker room full of insane adolescents. But it was an amazing time in my life. It was great. But in 2007, I decided to make the jump out to Arizona and get in this side of the business. It was around then that I met Jeff, because at the time I had just joined Raymond James. You were with Hancock at the time, and proceeded to build my branch up at Raymond James prior to Jeff and I having this discussion about merging in earnest about a year or so ago. So Jeff, you want to share some of your background?
Yeah, I started college in 1995, so I got that going for me. I moved out here in 2003 to be the director of sales for an insurance and annuity company out of Boston, which is where I'm from. And after 7 or 8 years with that company, I moved over and I was a sales rep for John Hancock here. And again, that's how I met Brent. Got married in 2008, and early in 2009, it was apparent that I didn't want to be on the road 2 weeks a year as we were growing, raising a family, and that just wasn't going to work. And I had seen so many good advisors, mediocre advisors, a lot of poor advisors in the service they gave to their clients. And I really thought with that background and experience of almost a decade of consulting to advisors, I could become one. Unfortunately, I had a great position to be able to start my career inside a branch at Raymond James and a family situation, evolved that into being managing partner of that firm, creating my own firm, and now partnering with Brent. So I've spent the last 25 years really trying to understand the needs of clients and then backfilling in what investments are suitable for clients of all types, whether it be retail clients today or even clients that are advisors themselves for the first decade of my career. So it's been a joy and a journey. And I really feel like, you know, if the kids were going to use a gaming term about leveling up, like this opportunity for Brent and I, we both feel is a level up for each of us for the next phase of our careers. So super excited to meet people and talk more about any of the background stuff that we need to. So Andy, can you throw that next slide up?
And so now we've got, obviously, Jeff and I as leaders of the team, but we have a very important person in this leadership team as well. And that's Denise McGuire. And my side of this equation, I guess, at least prior to the merger, don't know Denise, but I will say that she's one of the most absolutely remarkable people I've ever met. And I'm looking forward to giving her the opportunity to introduce herself to you.
Hi, I can't, my video, hold on.
You're good.
We got you.
Oh, wonderful. I can't see myself, but all right. So my name is Denise McGuire. I'm in my 8th year working at the Well Stewards. I currently serve as the firm's COO, and I'm the primary advisor for a select group of clients. Recently, I've been given the nickname of Team Mother, and I'm choosing to believe that's not because I'm the oldest member of the team, but instead because, like all good mothers, I get things done and I care. So if there's anything I can do for any of you to make your experience as one of our valued clients better, please feel free to let me know. Thank you.
I'd like to add a quick story to that. So when Jeff and I and Ernest started talking about this seriously, Denise, she was part of the original conversation as well. And when we started talking about what we wanted to do and the scale and scope of what we wanted to do, Jeff and I spent about 2 days down with a consultant in Florida. And Denise insisted that she come with us because she had a lot of details and questions that she wanted to make sure that were answered. And while Jeff and I tend to charge ahead and move forward with something, Denise actually came in with a bullet point questionnaire with over 100 different points that we had to go through during those 2 days. So she's definitely a detail-oriented operational expert, no question about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have 8 years worth of history of Denise, and it would take me too long to tell all the fantastic stories about the improvements she's made to my life and our clients. So we'll get to that when there's more time. But again, Denise is here for anybody who needs mothering, I guess. So thanks, Denise. Andy, you want to move on to the next level for us? All right, so you've met Brent and I. We both spend the majority of our day, well, in a regular course of business, when we're not in the middle of a transition, we spend the majority of our days with clients, as most of you know. Denise, as she mentioned, also has a primary role of servicing a select group of clients at the Well Stewards. But I'm really excited to introduce Ryan. Ryan Remming joined our team in March, and I'll let him give you a little bit of background on him and who he is and what he does. And Professor, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Yeah, my name's Ryan Remming. I've been in the financial industry about 13 years now, the last 10 of which was in a wealth management role at Raymond James. So I do run my own book of business alongside Jeff and Brent, and got to know Jeff over the last 4 or 5 years. He's been a great mentor for me and done a lot for me in the business, just growing my own practice and best practices with clients. And really excited to have joined TWS in March with the idea of continuing to run that practice, but also expanding on the advisory capacity for the firm. Look forward to meeting and working with a lot of you folks as well. And one other note, apparently, according to the team at least, I'm a savant in Excel. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it sounds pretty nerdy, so that's it.
Hence the nickname, the Professor.
Thanks, Ryan. So that's a client-facing team, if you will, as far as relationships at their ground level. But obviously, I don't think anything that we do at the client-facing level could happen without some really unbelievable support. And while there are people who are technically in charge of relationships, I would say, Brent, tell me if I'm wrong, the people that you're about to see largely do most of the work. They just don't get all of the client facing credit most of the time. So what we wanted to do is give the rest of the team, who are equally as important, a shot to introduce themselves, show their faces, and maybe throw a tidbit in that might be interesting to our audience.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. Hi, everyone. I'm Kayla. I've worked with Brent since 2016. I am the relationship manager. I'm also a CFP. So I join Brent in all of our client meetings and assist him with following up and executing the financial plans. And a lot of you talk to me on a daily basis. And for those that I haven't met, I look forward to getting to know you and learning more about you. I'm sure we'll get time to learn more about each other.
And I would add to Jeff's point with Kayla, the business that we built here, both Kayla and Andy, who you'll meet in a moment, would have been impossible for me without their support. So these are two people that I'm extremely excited to bring to Jeff and his team and see what we can do as a unified force here. It's going to be amazing.
Next up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Diozzi. I have been in the financial services industry for 12 years now, and I joined the Wealth Stewards in 2022. My roles here are the relationship associate, meaning like Kayla, I can assist any tasks you need, any account-related issues, or any questions you may have, do a lot of goal planning and building as well. And I am a financial advisor as well. Like Jeff, I was born and raised in Boston, and I made Scottsdale my home about 7 years ago. So I look forward to meeting and working with each and every one of you.
Thanks, Andrew. Go Celtics.
Andy. Now we have Andrew and Andy. So we've sort of bifurcated this by Andrew is the team member that came over from Jeff's side, and Andy, of course, for those of you that work with me, know again that much like Kayla, the business that I have built would not have been possible were it not for Andy. So Andy, with that segue.
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Andy. I'm basically the team mascot. No, I'm just operations. I'm the operations guy. So if you're already talking to me and asking me questions, continue to do so as you always do. But I'll be doing a more behind the scenes sort of thing. So paying the bills and just keeping operations going. So that's what I'll be doing. And a little bit about me: I was born in Canada, moved to Arizona for ASU, and I've been here since. So that's what I got.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, Andy's one of those people that if you heard it, is one of those unsung heroes. He's kind of playing a role that is in the background that I think is well suited for him, but by no means isn't important, because if we don't pay bills and there aren't people doing all the back office operation stuff that need to get done, we will implode. So know how Andy is vital to us, just like the next person. So Noelle, you're up.
So we had Noelle on here, but it looks like she may have just dropped off. So I will try to get her back on, and then we'll continue when I can get her back on here.
That's a bold move. Yeah, I like that. I'll give Noelle a plug just in case she doesn't get back on camera, and that is that Noelle joined the original team of mine, the team of the Wealth Stewards, as we call it, 1.0 sometimes, and about 18 months ago, 20 months ago, and I can't tell you how dynamic of a professional and a human being she is. Particularly for those of you who are legacy Wealth Stewards 1.0 clients. We have had a large staff turnover event in the last year. And not only did all the team pick up slack, but Noelle did some things that were above and beyond and showed us exactly why she belongs on this team for a very long time. So Noelle will come back if and when she's ready. And Andy, if and when she is, just drop her in and we'll shut up for a minute.
Perfect.
And if she's not ready, let's go ahead to the next slide if you can. All right, this slide is a bit busy, but I tell you, this is a really important slide for everybody, because this is our way of communicating who the heck all these parties are that we've introduced in your lives in this transition. And so I think first, from the two of us, we're very grateful for everybody's patience, but not only that, but trust to understand that we are introducing these things for reasons. And I think some people just went by trust and faith with us down this journey, and we can't tell you what that means to us, because that's basically all we manufacture is your faith and trust in us. But we did want to spend a couple minutes going through really what all these different entities and parties mean as far as the relationship. Because at Raymond James, it was very simple. We were branch owners of Raymond James, and everything got done through Raymond James. And in the new world, it's a little bit different. So we want to explain who these partners are. If you don't mind, I'll explain the first one, and if you want to do PKS and Fidelity, would that be okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So if you look at the slide in front of you, to the right of the Well Stewards logo is a logo that says Concurrent. Concurrent is the corporate RIA, which stands for Registered Investment Advisor and Growth Partner, that we are using to help pull off all of the functions that we need to operate in our new world. And so Concurrent is a choice for us to tag along to a rapidly growing national network of advisors just like us that all pool resources for the benefit of economies of scale, pricing, efficiencies, and whatnot. And so some of the things that Concurrent does for us in the background, none of you will ever call Concurrent. You likely aren't going to know who those people are, just like you didn't know who the back office people were at Raymond James, but they're very, very important to us. They serve functions like making sure that we're in compliance with all the same standards that you've known of us in our prior entities and our prior lives. They are in-depth operations support. For example, there is a team we still work with at Concurrent that has been solely dedicated to this transition. And it's been quite complex because you're talking about not only a transition, but the merger of a couple of different practices. And so it's been vital to have their support in that. Otherwise, we'd need probably 10 more employees on staff with us. And then probably almost as interesting, I think, to most people is we utilize and leverage their operations or their investment and due diligence research team. So for example, yesterday we had 2 individuals fly out from Concurrent, spend the entire day with us talking about how in our new world, we're going to reshape the investment delivery system for all of you. How do we upgrade it? How do we create cost efficiencies? How do we offer the types of investments that we want more of you to have that are accessible to us now that we're in this space? And so all of these are the types of things that Concurrent in the background will be helping to serve. And we've chosen them as a partner, and we feel really good about that partnership at this point. So Brent, you want to go through with Fidelity and PKS?
Yeah, and so Fidelity, now that we're in this world, Jeff had alluded to the fact that before we were at Raymond James, everything was delivered by Raymond James. The way that I would describe it to people is we were in a very, very nice harbor, but we could not stray outside of that harbor to find solutions. In this RIA world that we're acting in now, we're acting as fiduciaries. Part of acting as fiduciary means that we need to choose who we believe is the best custodian for managed client assets. In this case, we've chosen Fidelity not for any reason except for the fact we think that they are the best in this space. So the vast majority of you, most of your assets and a lot of the assets that we're bringing to this merger have landed at Fidelity, one of the largest companies in the entire world in this space. Another thing I think that was important to Jeff and I is culturally very similar to what we wanted to build. Still privately owned. They are not managing towards quarterly expectations. Our business that we're bringing to the table is significant enough that it's raised our eyebrows a bit. We're getting an enormous degree of service from them. But we chose them for the sole reason that we thought their pricing power, their efficiencies, their scales, their investor protections, the basic investor protections in terms of excess CIPA and other measures like that are higher than what we left at Raymond James. So they are the primary custodian. They're by no means our only custodian. We have access to other custodians as well, but they're our primary custodian that are holding your money, with the exception of some of these other assets. Which you want me to dive into PKS?
Yeah, would you?
Okay. So a question that we get a lot is, okay, well, who is, now that these assets are all moving, and there's been rhyme and reason in terms of how these things go. The managed assets are going first. We're going to touch on this in a little bit, but then you've got annuities, you've got what we call special assets, really for the most part annuities and 529s. Those are broker dealer assets. And all that you need to know from our standpoint is that they exist outside of our RIA space. And so they have to be housed at a broker dealer. Call me offline if you have real questions in terms of what that is. But PKS is actually a Fidelity company, but PKS is the broker dealer that we've chose to house those assets. I'd add in the case of annuities specifically, and also 529s, those assets never were really at Raymond James anyway. They were held at the carriers or wherever. And we're basically just the agent of record on those annuities at PKS. But there's broker-dealer side, which in the case of where Jeff and I are moving to, much smaller part of our business. And then there's the RIA side, which is right now the majority of it is at Fidelity. So those are the two components that all of you have seen Fidelity. Some of you have seen PKS. You want to touch on Goldman Sachs? You want me to?
No, you can do Goldman. Let me just throw one thing in
Yeah,
about
please.
Fidelity. The reason Fidelity, we handled that first, is Fidelity has 9 times as much money going to it of our combined book of business than the broker-dealer business at PKS. The second thing is PKS investments, as Brent said, are held at the investment company. So whether it's John Hancock on 529s, pick annuity carriers, whatever insurance company you want to plug in there, there's nothing that's lost by us leaving Raymond James and establishing ourselves with Concurrent in those products. They're still invested. There's still, there's nothing lost. Whereas the managed accounts, which is the lion's share of our business, if they weren't moved to Fidelity first, they were sitting there at Raymond James with no advice and no oversight.
Right.
And so not only is it larger, but it's way more important because we have a direct daily fiduciary obligation on those assets to be sure we do what's in your best interest at all times. So that gives you why perhaps if you have a managed account or an IRA that we're overseeing for you and managing, but you have an annuity and you're like, well, where's the annuity? I don't see it or I don't understand. So hopefully this breakdown has helped understand that. But can you talk a little bit about Goldman and why they're on the page?
Yeah, so Goldman Sachs is on the page for a couple of reasons. And many of you had securities-based loans that were outstanding. Those loans had to be paid at Raymond James prior to the assets moving. Now, another thing that's very important to both Jeff and I making this move was securities-based lending is a big part of what we both do. In the past, Raymond James, not a knock on them, I was very happy there for 17 years, but we got whatever rate they basically told us we were going to get. We're in this new world, we can get competitive lenders, so people that really want our business, that can make some concessions on the rate. And so some of us that did bring over securities-based loans, I mean, we got better rates through having a competitive process for that. The lender that has come out on top, at least in the initial part of this move, has been Goldman Sachs. But Goldman Sachs also has a couple other roles for us. Jeff and I both, with Raymond James, had some existing referrals into RJ's investment banking. That's an area that increasingly for Jeff and I has become an important part of the business. And we have a lead investment bank in this new RIA world that we're at, and it's Goldman Sachs. The reason Goldman Sachs was chosen for that is obviously it's a monster company. They're huge. Everyone knows them, but they're also really big down in sort of the middle and smaller level of what an investment banking deal would look like, as well as having dozens of other relationships with boutique investment banks that increasingly for some of our business is going to become important.
Yeah, and by the way, a small investment banking deal is more money than anybody on this call would be happy with, handling. And I say that because Goldman gives us the ability to be full service up and down the scale in terms of size of companies that might need investment banking services, but also industry wide. But also, if Goldman Sachs doesn't treat us well, treat our clients well, we are not beholden to them. We'll go shopping tomorrow and find whoever else wants to be more competitive. So when Brent talks about this, contrast of being in a harbor with Raymond James, a safe harbor, and now we can go to the open ocean to source, the types of game that we need to feed the meal to our intended audience. It's a good example that we are now an institutional client of all these investment firms. And when we partner with Concurrent and you're talking about our entire platform having billions of dollars at stake for these companies to get their hands on, to provide great services to and at competitive terms, that's exactly the type of freedom that we've really been, yearning for as we evolved in our careers and got us to this point.
Yeah. And I would say the other thing too, that increasingly that Goldman brings to the table is, the alternatives platform that we have access to through them, actually through the relationship with Fidelity, is really substantial. Private client Goldman Sachs, I think it's a $25 million minimum. We have the exact same of alternative suites that's being offered at a very different price point. And so Goldman Sachs does a lot of things for us. And we have the ability to custody assets for them in the future, should we choose to do so.
Yeah, and to that end, Fidelity is our primary custodian today. But again, being multi-custodian. So one of the other differences from Raymond James for all of you is if you had an account at Fidelity when we were affiliated with Raymond James, or if you had an account at Charles Schwab, The only way for us to become a fiduciary and to serve you on that account was for you to move it to Raymond James. And in our new world, we can go meet people where they are. So while Fidelity is our first and primary custodian, there's nothing prohibiting us from doing so if it's a smart business decision to add other custodians and to have money that we manage on Fidelity or on Charles Schwab or TD Ameritrade or Goldman Sachs, any of these names that you might have heard of as far as custodians. Now, we don't want to have 10 different custodians where we're spread and have to run 10 different types of systems. So there is there's a smart way of thinking about it from a business perspective. But what you hopefully can hear from the two of us is being liberated to go and meet clients with the types of solutions that they need, as opposed to having some pre-selected menu available to us, even if that menu had really good items on it for us to select.
That's a great point. Yeah.
All right, Andy, can we move forward and see where we can talk about status? Brent, you want to take this?
Yeah, first, I just want to thank everybody for how responsive everybody was, because it was truly, when we got done the first week of this transition, it was incredibly humbling and just gratifying. I know for me when I went home, because we had almost 100% of our documents were signed and in process. Managed accounts, we brought about $500 million over to Fidelity. That represents about a little bit more than 90% of what we intend to bring to them. And that is truly a testament to all of you and how responsive you have been and how cooperative you've been, because we do also recognize that change is not easy, and we created some work for you. And from the bottom of my heart, and I think Jeff feels the same way, really want to thank you for that. And so that's so far what has occurred with Fidelity. There's been a couple of hiccups. There always will be, but it's been a massive, massive success. Now, we talked about PKS before, and so this is primarily as annuities, 529s. This is all in process. To Jeff's earlier point, when we decided that when we were looking at moving the assets to Fidelity, those managed assets were absolutely the most critical, because again, we had a fiduciary responsibility to take care of and look after those assets. The annuity assets were never at Raymond James. Raymond James basically put their sign on the front of them, but those assets were sitting at the different carriers. Those are in the process of moving now. I would expect it to happen very shortly. I know many of you have logged in your Raymond James accounts. You're still seeing the annuities there. This should be really soon, because these are all the assets that are moving right now. Same with 529s. Those are primarily going to be PKS assets. Some of the alternatives, the vast majority of the alternatives that we had, also going to Fidelity, but because of the amount of paperwork and the amount of I guess additional friction in moving those assets, sometimes that's taken a little bit more effort on our part. Those are in the process of happening now. And again, those of you that had those kind of assets were in constant contact with you in terms of how to move them.
I want to add something that I think is really kind of a forward-looking thing, and that is when you step into this space of heightened independence and what we keep referring to as the RIA space, one of the obligations in this world is to be a fiduciary in all things that we do. And fiduciary in our world means clients' interest before ours at all times. And one of the interesting things I think you can start to expect is perhaps some different ways that we're going to think about, and perhaps want you to think about and consider how you hold some of these broker-dealer assets. And the reason I say that is 25 years ago, there wasn't the variety to operate some of these products in a fiduciary space like there is today. So some of you are legacy clients from 10, 20 years ago. There are things you might have in place that you might hear from us and say, you know what, in this new space, there's an opportunity to upgrade this to a relationship that puts us in a fiduciary role. Because one of the ironic things, although we would always do the right thing for you, is broker-dealer business doesn't have the same obligation of best interest in all ways like all of your managed assets do. And so once again, we ride on our reputations that we've hopefully earned with all of you and will continue to earn. But that might be a signal into one of the ways we might be thinking about these types of things differently, because perhaps said differently, in our new world, this broker-dealer business of managing things like 529 college savings plans or even annuities can be a pain in the butt. So I'm not saying that's for everybody, and certainly everybody's circumstance is unique, and we treat you all unique with your own set of circumstances. But just something to maybe look forward to is there might be some other ways to think about and structure what we've done traditionally in the broker-dealer world as we look forward. So maybe something to look forward to, or maybe you just see it as more change and we're drowning you out with it. Tell us that too.
Yeah, definitely less than that. But to Jeff's point, we were somewhat restricted in terms of if we wanted to provide a certain solution, we didn't have the full menu of capabilities that we have right now. So there will definitely be some change in terms of how we're investing assets moving forward and what the opportunity set for our clients looks like.
Yeah, I think the only thing, you may have said it, Brent, these in-process items, they're largely out of our control. And what I mean by that is what's going on in the background in a large amount of these cases where these things haven't transferred yet is there are back office requirements that weren't part of your initial paperwork that we couldn't have known, that only once we submitted the transfer did it trigger a secondary form or another look from compliance or additional due diligence. So, we tried to be as mindful as we could to have everything lined up and ready for transfer. And yet in a transition of this magnitude, what we found is even the best of what we were able to do, there are some lingering things that we'll reach out for. And if we're not reaching out to you, it's because we're doing it on our end. And our hope is for everybody, very, very soon, as humanly possible, everything that you were used to seeing at Raymond James, in terms of all your different types of assets, are going to be viewable, which perhaps is a lead in, Andy, to our next slide, if you'll change it.
So technology, one of the things that Jeff and I discussed prior to making this move was the main technology hub, the main portal that we're going to have for you all is not going to be Fidelity. Fidelity, essentially, we knew that it would take us, for some reasons we're going to discuss, a stopgap measure to get us through the 6 to 8 weeks or so before we launched our own, the Wealth Stewards portal, where you're going to have access to far more information than you have had at Raymond James. I knew that it was going to be inconceivable for a lot of clients to wait to see their assets, and also knew that a lot of clients had existing Fidelity accounts, and you guys basically were extremely fortunate because you basically saw your assets just sort of pop in on your existing logins. But what we're really excited about now, and particularly in some cases where annuities have already moved and 529s have already moved, certainly not all of them, but it is some of them, we want to have one place to go for you to see all this information. And so we've got coming next week. Let's go to the next slide there, Andy. All right. Some of my clients have heard me use the term Black Diamond. So what is Black Diamond? Black Diamond is probably the preeminent reporting software in the RIA space. What that allows us to do is really aggregate the assets that clients have through multiple custodians, through multiple insurance carriers. Pretty much everything that you have can be aggregated at Black Diamond. It's going to be white labeled, obviously, to our firm's name, but the amount of information that you're going to see is extremely comprehensive. For those of you, which I think is pretty much everyone that has GPMs or the primary plans that we put together, you will see them there as well. You're going to see far more detail about the investments that you own, the income that you will be receiving than you ever did at Raymond James when we launched this. The delay in launching this is simply because we needed to wait for assets to settle at Fidelity and also with PKS before we could essentially create this link to upload this data. The other thing that we wanted to wait for is, as you know, those of you that are logging in Fidelity realize that it's showing you performance date or performance information going back to the beginning of May. Well, no one really wants to see that. People want to see performance data that goes back as long as our relationships have been with you. That is all coming. So we're doing a bulk upload of all of that data into Black Diamond. So when you log in and see this, you may not see it all the day you log in. It should be by the end of the month. You will see performance back to the inception of the accounts. There's also going to be tools there to communicate with us directly. Again, your GPMs, your goal plans will be accessible there directly. There's a lot of really, really cool features and functionality that this portal is going to have. In addition to that, I'll touch on the app that we're going to have as well. We're calling it Penny. We thought it was kind of good name for it. Get on Penny and check this out, that type of thing. But the app is also coming as well. That, again, we feel like is going to provide you a lot of information, a lot of real-time information in terms of what you want to see with your investments, Jeff.
Yeah, and these aren't two things. These are the same things,
thing.
digestible in different ways. So Black Diamond will, again, Brent calls it white labeling, but just imagine you're going to have a Wealth Stewards client portal that you'll save just like you saved a Raymond James login. And Penny is the version of that on your mobile phone, on Google and your iPhones, for those of you who have those two types of device. If you have another type of device, just go to the website, because I don't know what else there is out there that we would build an app for. But I think the important thing to build off of what Brent said about Black Diamond's capabilities is it's also an engagement tool between us. So, imagine you have something that you received in the mail or, via email, a document that is a, certificate of a stock or some notification of stock that you held 20 years ago. In the past, what you would do is you would, call us or email it over to us, which wasn't secure, by the way, so don't do that. But what this is going to allow you to do is to have a secure vault. So midnight on a Saturday, you go, you know what, let me fire it off to Brent or Jeff or to the team and have them look at it. And that will securely come to us. And maybe from that upload, there'll be a to-do assigned with it where one of us will look at it and say, actually, we need to schedule a call with the custodian of that asset. And, here are our available times, or here's a link to our calendar. That'll actually happen all inside of this Black Diamond app or online portal specific to you. So imagine this as a tool of engagement. We can assign you tasks to do at the end of a meeting. We can assign ourselves tasks to do. We can communicate back and forth. So just imagine a more robust way, other than face-to-face or on the phone or via email, for us to have a collaborative place for all things that happen to happen between us.
Ongoing chat features and things like that, yes.
Yeah, and so the thing that we're impressed by this is the ability for a piece of technology to enhance the work we do together, not to be a reporting feature or not to be something that is a hindrance, or, I can't get a hold of you guys, or, I don't know where something is. Because, for example, Fidelity will take your Fidelity statements and dump those into this portal. You'll be able to see
tax
those.
reports, statements, it's all gonna be in there.
So it's going to take a little bit of time, one, for, as Brent said, us to get it all cleaned up and pretty for you as far as, backdating on performance history and being able to make sure the display works for you. And that'll take some time for you to understand how to find things that you might want to find. But we've tested it. We've been working on it for a couple of months now. And it does look like it's going to launch next week. So we'll be excited to have that as another offering with another login and another set of instructions to follow. But hopefully this becomes the one place that you all go to as, the opportunity to be able to see what's going on, communicate whatever isn't pressing. You obviously know you can call or find us if things are of material nature that need to be discussed more pressingly. So we're excited. We hope you adopt it because we love it, and we're all on it. We've all seen it and been working on it. And if there are any improvements to be made, that is one of the nice things. Again, at Raymond James, there was a custom website or a website template that we operated off of that was firm wide. This belongs to us. So if you have any improvements, as always, we solicit feedback and we'll make it a journey together like everything else to make sure it works as best as possible for you and for us.
Yeah, and my intention too to clients that I work with is I plan on incorporating the discussion about this in with our review meetings that we'll be doing throughout the entire summer, because I do recognize that we've thrown quite a bit at you, and we want to make sure that we're walking alongside you in terms of accessing this, seeing how to use it, and learning what it can do for you. So it's there. In the meantime, with the exception of the annuity assets, you will see what you've got at Fidelity. You maintain that login if you'd like, for sure, but this is going to be far more robust and provide a lot more information. Now with that, Andy, let's go ahead to the next slide. All right. Now, please, I really want to encourage anybody. I hope we covered a lot of questions, but I really want to encourage anybody to ask anything. There's nothing that is for sure off limits. I want to make sure the purpose of this call is to address your questions.
Yeah. First question up, and it's come through. So by the way, if you don't know how to ask a question, you are all unable to ask it live. But you will see that there's a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and you can just click Q&A and then just type in your question. As soon as you type the question and send it, Brent and I can see it. So I know it works because we've already had one question come in, and I will read it and probably give Brent the first crack at answering and then throw everything in I can that I think is on top of what he says. So first question comes in. It says, thanks for the update. We alluded to this, but how and when will portfolios change given the broader access to investment ideas and strategies? Also, are there any access to IPOs?
In terms of the change to the portfolios, I think that, fundamentally, one of the things that Jeff and I want to do in this world is perhaps look at this portfolio management a little bit differently. And we spent the day yesterday looking at, or at least beginning the discussion of what sort of options, what sort of availabilities will we now have combined to really create custom portfolios with institutional power behind us. Because again, I'm mentioning, we're an institutional client in the street with well over $500 million worth of asset now. So people do want to talk to us, and how we can create the best models for our clients. Our goal is to really finalize that process by probably about October 1st, come up with some solutions that we'd like to roll out. I had a client meeting today, and that was a question that I answered. I said, look, right now, both Jeff and I, we're very comfortable with the portfolios that we migrated over. But one of the things that I've said to Jeff repeatedly through this is neither of us, I think he agrees with this, we don't want to look back 6 months, 12 months from now and have had this amazing transition, have all these new resources that we can bring to the table, and still be conducting business and managing assets in the same way we have in the past. That'd be silly given the opportunity set that lays before us right now. So that's a great question, and that's definitely coming.
Yeah, and what I would add is, let me give a specific example for people, something that came up yesterday. So one of the amazing things about partnering with Concurrent and the scale of that, and then being a Fidelity custodial client, is there are strategies that are literally the exact same strategies that we may have access to at Raymond James, that you might have had a $250,000 minimum to get into that strategy. Because of the scale of Concurrent and Fidelity, there are strategies that the same exact strategy in our new world might have a $50,000 minimum. So what the exercise that we're going
And be
through,
cheaper.
right? And cost structure is more favorable to you as a client, which is what we're always looking for. And so just imagine that for 400 clients across what were 3 different books of business, we're analyzing where these efficiencies can be created and trying to do it in a way that's scalable across it. And so one of the things that I think is really interesting is we could do a bunch of stuff for a bunch of people today and yesterday and tomorrow, and it would look really haphazard. And there is the law of unintended consequences. So if we click a button, did we create a tax situation for somebody that we didn't want to, just to get something that we thought was cool and new and shiny? And so there's a lot of consideration, but I can tell you that, to Brent's point, there is no other true north after the first part of the process of getting assets over, which is to improve the quality of the portfolios of the people who are clients of ours today. There is nothing else that's on the radar, that's as important as that, as we look to the next certainly 6 months and hopefully sooner. So hopefully that's sufficient. If there's any follow-up on that question, happy to do so. Next question. How long, Brent, before folks no longer get reports, et cetera, from Raymond James?
Now, I could be wrong on the timing of this. So I know that Kayla and Andy probably have a better idea, but I'll try. And if I'm wrong with this, let me know. So basically, I believe that the accounts at Raymond James will stay open for 6 months. My understanding is Fidelity is doing, for the first 3 months, a sweep every 2 weeks, and then they'll do a monthly sweep after that. That may go on beyond 6 months. And what I mean by that when I say a sweep is there's dividends, there's interest, there's other monies that have been paid into those Raymond James accounts post-transfer. So we get obviously a lot of communication from clients saying, hey, why is there $2,628 in my IRA or fractional shares in some kind of a fund? And the reason is because post-transfer, those monies were paid into Raymond James. Fidelity will proactively reach out, sweep all of those funds out on a continual basis and bring those over. I believe it's 6 months. I could be wrong on that, Jeff. You have
Yeah, those sweeps will happen for 6 months. I think the other thing that's important is, as long as you have an active account open at Raymond James with $1 in it, you're still going to get all those other things like shareholder reports and proxy votes and stuff like that. And so for those of you who are fatigued by getting a bunch of stuff in the mail, outside of the transition and Raymond James, I think it's going to be very important for us to make sure that those things go away as soon as possible, but they will go away as soon as the account is closed at Raymond James. I'm going to leave Brent to answer the next question because I need to go plug in our computer.
Just got the low battery mode. So what do RA, let's start with RA and RIA mean. And so RA, at least in our term, would be registered associate. That would be like somebody like Kayla that is that's licensed, there's a CFP that can help out with clients. And as those of you know that work with me, has been a massive help to me. RIA is basically this. If you think about the money management universe that we are in, there's two sort of main channels to that. There's the broker dealer side, which I view it primarily as the sales side. And now we acted as fiduciaries to the best extent that we could within that broker deal channel, as I did as in terms of being a CFP, but we weren't obligated to do that. It was a know your client rule, which is basically, you're making the best effort to do the right thing for your clients. In the RIA space, which is registered investment advisor world, we have a fiduciary liability to do the best thing we can for our clients, which is one of the reasons that we're bringing these other relationships to the table, because this is the best solution to our clients. So one is pure fiduciary space. It is an outcome-based thing. The other is we operated within it to the best extent we could, but it was primarily the sales channel.
Great. I'm back and we have power.
We have power again. We're in business.
This is the benefit of partnership. Otherwise, it would have been a blank screen for a minute. So Brent got to answer that question. So you're already seeing the fruits of all this labor. Clients saying they note that on Fidelity, the portfolio has a bunch of different stocks. Will that be streamlined? Brent, I'll let you give a crack at this, but I have an answer to it as well. And so go for it.
Well, I think that if you're talking about a bunch of different stocks, those of you, at least that work with me, you probably owned a lot of those stocks. So they should not necessarily look different. However, in some cases, we had separately managed accounts. And so you had separate account managers that were running a portion of your portfolio, and they were set up as being separate sleeves at Raymond James. Now, what we're in the process of doing right now is essentially relinking the managers that we had with them at Raymond James to those accounts. So what you'll do is you're going to see those show up again in the sleeves that they were before. I believe that answers your question.
Hopefully it does. If there's more color needed, obviously reach out.
But none of the investments changed when we came over. We brought assets over like to like, but in terms of some of those separately managed accounts, the manager was pulled off. So you might have seen it as West End before, but now you're just seeing a bunch of stocks. Now you're going to see it as West End again once that linkage gets reestablished.
Yep. So any other color on that from whoever asked it? I couldn't see it was a phone number. Reach out separately. Another question, could you verify all assets will be viewable on the Black Diamond portal and application once full setup is completed? And would that include life insurance policies? And the answer there is yes. So one of the nice things is there's two ways to think about this. There's assets that you've entrusted Brent and our teams, as your advisors and as your wealth management team to help you with. So that would be your managed accounts, any of these broker dealer assets like annuities that perhaps we put in place for you. But then there's another level around that. And there's the ability to do what's called aggregation. And aggregation is the ability that if you have an account or an annuity or some sort of investment somewhere outside that we've never helped with, that can be linked into Black Diamond to show up. And so we have the ability to be, and one of the things, if you've been a client for a while, if we've known about those assets, what you probably recall is that when you were coming in for a review, we would say, hey, bring an updated statement of that account or that thing that's out there that we actually don't serve you for. And you would, and then 2 years later, we would update it again. This aggregation feature will allow us to not have to do that because it'll have a data feed into Black Diamond and our custom app to be able to show other assets. So at its full functionality, the answer is yes. And it's a big benefit that we're hoping that will streamline the ability for us to serve you all. Will your new portal have access to all of the Fidelity features like transfers?
It has access to statements and tax confirms and transfers or movement of that money out, say sales, that should all be included in there. If I'm reading that question correctly. Any of the access that you have at Fidelity, of course, you're going to continue to have access to Fidelity, but all of that data will feed into Black Diamond as well.
Yeah, there's a question also about the build out of the portal, vetting security risks. So Black Diamond has an entire security protocol that if anybody wants to see, we can show you. But I think the summary answer to that is that Black Diamond is the premier third-party reporting tool in the RIA space today. So this is new to all of you in terms of us being here, but these are companies that have been doing this for decades in many cases. and doing it exclusively for this. So Black Diamond is a good example. If Black Diamond's security measures aren't robust, they don't have a business. People like us are not going to affiliate with them. But if anybody wants to see the detail of that, we're happy to provide you with that, because there is a FAQ and kind of an info doc on how security. I could talk about for 10 minutes about how there's blind data flowing from both places, but that would get in the weeds, and half the people here would be more asleep than they perhaps already are. So
Hey, Jeff,
follow
I
up if
just
you need
want to
more.
jump in. Just want to
Yep.
jump in a quick second here. This is Andy. To answer that question on the transfers. So I do want to make a point that anything account related for withdrawals, that sort of thing, will be done on Fidelity still. I don't believe we have that on Black Diamond.
But it will show up on the statements that we'll upload to Black
It
Diamond.
will show up, yes.
I've got a question here that I love because we have an easy answer for it. And when you created the Well Stewards, did you also create a mission statement, company motto for your clients to hold on to and to trust? I don't know if anybody saw you'll see it again when we close, but there is a mission statement that was on the very first page if you were all logged in and waiting for us to start. And that is a collective shared vision. Brent, myself, Denise, our consultant that helps us kind of think forward looking. And so if you want to hear it or if you want to see it, but the vision statement for the Well Stewards as it exists today and forward looking is that we are an empathetic and disciplined approach to shared achievement with our clients. And that's a play off of some of the legacy wording that we used at the Well Stewards on my end in its original form. But then in a re-engagement with Brent and some of the things he felt were really important to add in that we agree with wholeheartedly. So the idea is that this is a shared journey, and our approach to being empathetic is really important because you are all individuals or couples or families that are separate from each other. But then the idea of discipline being what unlocks for all of us the freedom, that we want financially. And so we're a partner in that with all of you, and we're on this journey together. So hopefully this slide answers that, but we're happy to talk more because there's plenty of color behind it.
And I would certainly add too that we have a very robust value statement that we've spent a couple of days on, you and I, and it was a lot of fun. It was, at least for me, very important to put together as well. So yeah, we spent a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah. Somebody writes, if we need a meeting, who should we contact? The short answer is your primary relationship manager is always the place to start. So if you're a legacy client of Brent's, a legacy client of mine, start with us. What you might find is that because of everything we're doing and all the growth of the firm and the fact that there are now a lot of clients and a lot of needs, that one of the relationship associates, the team behind us, might be more responsive or you might get pushed, your request might get pushed onto them in order to get that scheduled. One of the things we haven't talked about is that besides all of this change, many of you know this, we bought a commercial building and we're in the middle of making that our home. So when we're not in our day jobs of running a wealth management business and putting all this together, we're in the business of commercial property build out, and that's super excited. But what it means is, sometimes we're bogged down with some other activities that would have otherwise allowed us to be way more responsive. And I just tell you that not as an excuse, but as a preemptor for if you feel like you aren't getting a response in a timely manner, please use the team because that's why we have one. All right. Couple questions. One we answered.
Touch on the annuity question.
Oh yeah. Has my annuity moved to, well, here's the question. I'll state it the way that I think a lot of your annuities that have not yet made their journey to PKS, some of you are being notified that they've been assigned to Investment Central, or perhaps even received notification from Raymond James that an advisor has been named on your account. Brent, you want to talk about that and why it's happening and what it really means?
So when we left Raymond James pretty much all of the assets essentially go to Investment Central because we're no longer affiliated with Raymond James, and the corporate accounts, if you will, Investment Central are those that took care of that. Now, in the process of that, we had obviously the account transfer paperwork that fortunately came in very quickly to move these assets. The annuity assets, without kind of digging into the weeds too much, there were some back and forth issues in terms of closure fees that, quite frankly, we did not believe should have been paid for a variety of reasons beyond the scope of this call. Fidelity agreed to pay all those. And so there was a little bit of a delay in terms of them getting those closure fees paid out to Raymond James before they would release those assets. Part of that delay was they were sitting at RJ and Investment Central long enough where Raymond James, their goal is not to have, you know, all this money and these annuities and everything sitting in Investment Central. Their goal is to get them assigned out to other advisors. And they began to sort of automatically, you know, ping those things out. But that should all be resolved very quickly. But if there was one piece of this equation that was more challenging, I would say it was around the annuities and around some things that Ray J was doing, quite frankly, that I didn't think were good, but we've got it resolved.
Yeah, there's a couple questions here that are around kind of product selection and return expectations. And they're centered around the idea, you know, in certain product areas, I'm summarizing them just for the time purposes. In certain product areas, will we have better return, or can we expect a better returns? Can we expect lower risk? You know, Brent, will you speak to what is the universe of investments in all these areas today, different from what the universe looked like at Raymond James for us?
First of all, it's massively larger, but massively larger does not necessarily in every case mean better. You know, Jeff used the comment that, you know, we're indoor cats before at Raymond James. Now the door is open and you can walk outside and there's beautiful trees and everything else, or there could be a truck coming to run you over. And so we want to be very cognizant of what's out there and make sure the due diligence is going to occur to see if they're appropriate. I will say in terms of return, you know, the question of return has always been this, is what is the appropriate level of return relative to the amount of risk that you can actually take? And those in many cases are two very different questions. I do believe that just because of the scale that we have now through Fidelity, we're going to be able to deliver a far greater variety of options at an enormous efficiency relative to what we had at Raymond James. The goal, we didn't think we'd be doing this if we thought that per unit of risk that we could deliver more return. But you know, now we're just going to have a broader world to make those decisions, hopefully in a better way.
Yeah, and I'd add two things. One is that we didn't leave Raymond James for performance issues.
Yeah.
You know, portfolios as they were constructed for each of our client bases were constructed thoughtfully the same, and that'll be the same moving forward. What I think is really interesting is philosophically, Brent and I, without knowing it at the inception of our practices, both have a fundamental core belief that portfolios should be invested to align with successful outcomes of planning. So you begin with planning. Once you begin with planning, you can back into portfolios that work to meet planning needs. And from there, that's how you get a risk tolerance profile, a risk return profile that you build investments up to meet. Now, you as clients and important people in our lives whose money we are stewards of, you get to decide if you want to take more risk. That's up to you. If you want to take less risk, our job is to show you the implications of those sorts of decisions and make sure that at all times we are tying back what we're doing for you for the whole reason that you have money in the first place, to do the goals that are important to you. So you know, risk can always be dialed up. I can find you, you know, lots of things that have a better return potential. And the question is, can you handle the downside risk that comes with it? Because if we had the crystal ball and the knowledge to know every single investment's return trajectory, I certainly wouldn't be on this call doing this business for anybody else. I would be the most wealthy person in the world. Don't worry, I would be charitable, but I certainly would find a different way to use those talents. Some for personal use and some for charitable intent.
Yeah, so that's the big question. We do believe the universe is going to provide us a greater opportunity to be able to meet client goals, and we're definitely excited about that.
Couple other questions that are kind of more specific to each of us. So for those of you, and it's 3:00 and we wanted to honor the hour. So for those of you who have asked a question and we haven't answered it live, you're more than welcome to ask the question again if you feel like it hasn't been answered. And if your question has been ignored thus far, as long as we can see you and your name when you logged in, we'll get back to you with the answer to that question, but some of you are in as anonymous attendees and ask questions. So if you don't hear from us, it means we didn't know who you were. If we didn't answer it and we know who you are, we'll get back to you after the call. Brent, do you have any finishing comments for everybody that you think are important? And Andy, if you could throw the ending slide up just for everybody to have that as a frame of reference in our closing comments.
Yeah, I would say that, a lot of these kind of rhyme. I would say that in terms of, hopefully we've answered the big stuff for you. If there's anything that you did not have answered, please reach out to either Jeff or myself or a member of the team directly. I would add, is there anything, I'll be a little more patient. All right, let's see. All right, thanks. All right. Yeah. You're welcome for the information. Thank you. I would say, yeah, if you have other questions, please reach out to us directly. I would just add that first of all, again, thank you everyone for being a part of this journey with us. One of the things that I think has been incredibly meaningful to me is, as you can imagine, the last 3 or 4 months on our end, we've been tackling a lot of problems and issues as well. And I got to say that in terms of, it's been for me so inspiring to see how our clients have showed up for this, which has been amazing. How each of the team members have showed up. They've been incredible. I mean, the support team that we have behind us now, in beyond what I could have hoped for, has showed up. And I gotta say, this guy too. I mean, obviously I would not have done this had I not had full faith and trust in what this partnership would look like. But I literally am going home grateful every single day for our clients, for the team members we have, for Jeff, for his partnership. And so I just want to thank you all for being a part of that. If there were some questions that you did not have answered today, please reach out to me directly. We're all here to have you feeling as good and comfortable with everything moving forward as possible.
Yeah, and my closing comment is this. Brent and I share a philosophy that this business is intensely personal. For most people, their money is one of the 3 most important things in their lives. We don't take that lightly. This team is constructed to be the team to serve the needs of you today and tomorrow for a very long time. And that's our focus, is what are the types of things that we need to bring to you all to further solidify your trajectory and your wealth. And when we talk about shared achievements, that's what that is. If we do that well, we will have immensely rewarding, careers with people, not only, again, as Brent say, that are riding along with us inside the company, but the people who allow us to do that for them. And we will never take that lightly. And so I thank you all too, because it's a great thing to serve in this capacity. And the very first tenet of what we do, as you drill down below this mission statement, is we believe in the nobility of this profession. And we hope you feel that every day.
So thank you all. And again, just thank you all for being here. And if you have any additional questions, reach out to us. But thanks very much.
Have a great afternoon. Thank you, everybody.